Welcome back. For our next presentation, the title is Disruption in Supply Networks, How to Optimize for Variability and Uncertainty. And that's something we all wish to know more about, I'm sure. To tell us all about this, I'm delighted to welcome to LogiSYM, Joe Bellini. Now, Joe is the Chief Operating Officer at One Network Enterprises. And just having a quick look through his bio, he has quite an impressive background, and including a patent in supply chain planning. And he's the co-author of the business strategy book, The Real-Time Enterprise. So, Joe, can I hand over to you for your presentation? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the introduction. And I think my picture might be flashing a little bit black and white. I'm an engineer and a mathematician, so I'm not really that cool. But we'll focus on the content here that we have to present today. So it's nice to meet everybody. So I'm going to talk about new technology today. And as we all know, technology for technology's sake really isn't what we're all about. We're looking for business value. So we're looking to solve endemic business problems, and front and center, of course, is what we've all been experiencing. And there's been certain events like the pandemic and more recently the canal blockage that made people realize they don't really have as much visibility and control to disruption across their supply networks as they thought. And part of the problem, and I've listed a few bullets here, the current enterprise-centric software was never really designed for business operations. I used to design ERP systems, did a lot of work with many of the big companies, worked at Oracle for a while. And computers, when we first designed the enterprise software, weren't very powerful. So we had to break them up, the modules, into a lot of pieces. You know, production management, order management, procurement, and so forth, MRP. And they were designed to be enterprise-centric, hub and spoke. They were never really designed for network business operations. I mean, think about the simple example of Uber and its success. What was the traditional cab company? It was hub and spoke. What you didn't have, you had no visibility. You didn't have multi-party transactions where you could do financial settlement. You didn't have really good asset optimization. And really what you needed was a network. You needed something where every rider could see every driver could see every rider. So it was a many-to-many type network where you could do the assignment of the ride, optimize the assets, provide full visibility and control. Have automatic failover. If one driver dropped out, it would be an autonomous agent that would assign another. That's a network business operation. What's interesting is there's no dispatchers. That whole model that used to be in place in the traditional cab company is gone. Now you have the same function, but in a completely different way, a much more efficient way, much more satisfying to the riders, and much more efficient for the drivers. So really a completely new and different way to think about business. We've applied that type of new thinking, the next normal, the new normal, to what's happening in supply chains and supply chain networks. So don't think of it as just layering some kind of control tower or visibility layer on top of the old hub and spoke, over the wall, upstream, downstream, full of latency. This is completely different. It's profound, but it'll have the same impact on our ability to run our networks for orders and demand, forecasting, supply, logistics, transportation, that we saw the same difference that we saw comparing Uber to a traditional cab company. Roles will get more powerful, organizations will shift. Just like in Uber, you don't need dispatchers anymore. That's all handled as part of the network. Same thing will happen here. So what's happening today is this planning to execution workflow, both within the enterprise and across the tiers, has multiple disconnected algorithms and optimization engines. It's unbelievable. I mean, we count them when we look at a network. If the old hub and spoke up and down the network, there is about 20 different optimization engines where each of those nodes connect upstream and then downstream. And they're all localized and they're all trying to find a local optima, but they're not really working as a network. They're not working together to really help provide benefit for everybody, all trading partners in that ecosystem. And that's really what we're after. If you really want highest customer service levels at least landed cost, and you want full control over disruption, you've got to have a trading partner ecosystem. You can't have all these disconnected algorithms. You lose visibility, as we've seen. And then you've got armies of planners, and then it's very costly. To operate that way, you have to have lots of inventory. We had one big consumer goods client who was typical from retail up through manufacturing. They were carrying 65 days of inventory. Promotions are big, right? As you look at those markets, 40% of their volume was on promotion, 60% was on base. But on promotion, they only had 80% on shelf availability. It's hard to forecast exactly a promotion with the 65 days. That was the reasoning for it, with a big expediting budget, of course. Once they went on the network, we could drop that 65 days down to 25. And get this, the in-stock promotion items went from mid-80s to 99%. So you got to have your cake and eat it too. And you didn't need armies of planners. You had more powerful roles making decisions with technology. So these networks are so powerful when you look at very practical business applications, much better than what we've been dealing with, traditional planning systems and ERP, hub and spoke, and transportation planning and execution, where you can't see the order. I mean, why don't you have a transaction where you not only see the logistics, transportation planning and execution, but also you can see the order, so I can open a container on a ship, see what the orders are, reallocate if I need to. I can do order aggregation and cross-dock, looking inside a truck at the orders. If I'm trying to reach on time in full with something like Walmart's new edict, because you've got the on time, yeah, sure, you've got the transportation planning, logistics, execution, but you need in full too. For the perfect order, you need the ability to see transportation, logistics, and orders in the same transaction. You need a network approach to do that. Then you don't need all this excess stuff. You don't need extra people and extra expediters and planners and schedulers and all these buffers. All this potential value is trapped in the network due to all this sub-optimization we've been dealing with. The stale data, what's the other feature of what we've been using hub and spoke for? Fake lead times. We're trying to estimate, well, how long does it take? I mean, first of all, the information flow upstream, because you're passing it from system to system, takes forever. I mean, you need real-time information available to all trading partners. And even after all that latency for the information that flows upstream, then we've got fake delivery lead times going downstream. So very difficult to plan and execute in that kind of environment. You don't have visibility beyond the DCO warehouse. You just don't. The systems, the legacy systems, first of all, can only configure for dual party transactions, so two-person transactions, not a nice multi-party transaction like we really have in real life when we're doing planning and collaboration and execution. And I guarantee you, just about everyone out there does not have visibility upstream to their orders beyond the DC or the warehouse. We need to have that, and networks give you that. You get that just as part of bringing up a network. So the resulting models for decision-making are oversimplified. They're using stale data and gross averages, and the inventory capacity buffering is required. So what are the core principles to get across all this? It's really all about flow and guided resolution. Network representation in a software like ours, you can go from your end consumer, if it's direct ship to consumer or retail, all the way upstream through your manufacturing and tier 2 suppliers. They can all be represented on the network. So now you've got full end-to-end visibility. With that visibility, you then have actionability, because there's going to be disruption to flow, right? As good as we are now with machine learning, and we've done a lot there in terms of reducing forecast error on a predictive basis, you're still going to have variations in demand and supply. That, whether it's in the S&OP realm, in the 12 to 18 month range, or it's on the shipment this afternoon, there's going to be issues in terms of flow, exceptions. And so we need actionability against that. So once we have the visibility, if we can look for exceptions and alerts across our network, we can go ahead and resolve for those in the network, and therefore execute least landed cost at highest customer service levels. Now, this does involve process learning and execution at scale. I mean, in many of our network deployments, we have millions of SKU buffers that we're optimizing autonomously. So you do need to take advantage. Just like Uber, when you've got an autonomous agent, when a driver drops out, you get an automatic reschedule of a new driver and you have full visibility to that. You need those agents working in the background. Now you can set KPI guardrails for that to say, yeah, I want to handle certain disruptions and exceptions autonomously. And other times, if they go outside the KPI guardrail, I want to kick it to a workbench and interact with a planner or a scheduler. That's great. The system is designed to do that. There's full prescriptive resolutions. So what you'll have is the ability to look at a prediction on the potential result when you select one of these resolutions. So you'll have directional financials on what will actually happen when you select that solution. It's dynamic day in the life, so you're dealing with demand-driven real-time data up and down the network across all trading partners. So you're able to make dynamic real-time decisions. You're not dealing with all this latency that we have in the existing environments. Self-adjusting supply chain. If you look at things like inventory buffer policies, especially when you look at things like aftermarket that are fairly complex, over time, you can make monthly or quarterly adjustments to policies based on what is driving better and improved results, whether it's in customer service levels, whether it's in improved inventory profiles, multi-echelon inventory optimization upstream, whether it's capacity constrained through the suppliers, it might be budget constrained in relation to the customer service levels you're trying to achieve. There's a lot going on there. And it must provide value to all enterprises. If you look at this new edict from Walmart, for example, if you can't hit 98% on time in full, they may charge you 3% cost of goods sold. Most suppliers are only running in the mid 80s. So this is a big problem. And it's not just cost shifting. It's not all about, hey, we're just going to tell you you have to do this and you're going to have to carry more inventory, more expediting, more capacity. No, the nature of a network is it improves the environment for all parties. So just like the improvement I talked about earlier, 65 days down to 25 days, that was done by eliminating the bullwhip effect going upstream. So the suppliers were actually able to operate more efficiently and more effectively. They were saving a lot of money. So this is all about operating more efficiently across all trading partners, not passing the buck and cost shifting upstream. So you must be able to embrace or replace existing solutions. All the analysts are talking about it. McKinsey, the types of improvements they're projecting: 75% reduction in lost sales, 30% reductions in transportation and warehousing, 80% supply chain administration. We're seeing all that. Sometimes not as drastic as like an Uber where you get rid of all the dispatchers. But if you look at the automated scheduling, the appointment scheduling, and the ability to automatically reallocate inventory to orders, last minute allocation type of things, if we're using agents with KPI targets in order to do a lot of that, that is happening autonomously in the background. So there is a lot of power here in terms of more powerful roles on a go-forward basis. If you look at Gartner's footprint, they still have the old traditional stovepipe transportation planning Magic Quadrant, but it's quickly evolving. If you look at the multi-enterprise business network, it's got all those capabilities, but in a network basis. So there's still transportation and logistics, but it's one that also has the order visibility. Why would you ever want to pick a stovepipe logistics and transportation solution when you can have one in a network and gives you all the visibility and control of logistics execution and order management? So you have OTIF, you have the on-time and the in-full together when you're looking to optimization throughout the network. So a lot of value potential there. What it looks like, just pictorially, what I've been discussing is you do get the zero latency. So this is a real-time single version of the truth in the network. You also have demand translation, of course, as part of the network upstream. And now you've got earlier visibility to problems. So what we talked about when we started the presentation, this is a reality today. Across every industry, we have these networks in place. So we have real-time demand-driven single version of the truth, earlier visibility with demand translation for all trading partners in the network. Now the importance of this is obvious. Now you do have visibility, if you want resilience, you want continuity, you want operational readiness in your network, whether you're looking at it from an SNOP perspective and you're looking 12, 18, even 24 months out, 6 months out, you're looking at sales and operations execution, this environment is seamless. Everything is modeled at the item level, at the each's level. A lot of power there. But then you aggregate at different levels when you do your planning. Let's say SNOP, it might aggregate truckload, container, for certain industries like high fashion apparel. I don't even know what the items are going to be longer term. I'm just looking at style and color when I'm looking at fabric and supplier capacity upstream in the network. So you can look at it at different levels within the network. The key is whether you're doing planning or doing execution, it's all seamless in one environment with all your trading partners, and you can work together as a team. So it is an integrated multi-tier, multi-party data model. A lot of our customers, when we first explain, digitization of the network, real-time demand-driven supply networks, and everything we bring with a control tower, their first aha moment is, oh my God, I've been dealing with, and some of our customers have over 100 deployed ERP systems, ERP instances, and they come to the realization is, wow, not only do I get all this visibility and control and decision-making on supply and demand variations, but I also get, for the first time ever, a multi-party data model across my network. So very exciting for everybody that are participating in these networks. I mean, this is truly the disruptive technology of the next decade. It really is. Don't be fooled by these companies that have all these stovepipe applications and then they just put a veneer on top to say, oh yeah, I've got a control tower. That's ridiculous. You need an actual many-to-many network-based real-time architecture with an integrated multi-tier, multi-party data model. That is the only way that you can drive out the types of benefits I'm discussing. It's different than just putting a fancy layer on top. Even if it has analytics and things like that, it's just not going to get you there. A good way to think about it is, here's all the different parties. So I've got an order view from the customer, I've got a projected inventory view, I've got an order view from a supplier, transportation manager. These are all different constituents within your network, upstream and downstream in the network. And this is what I mean by a multi-party transaction. So I can have a projected inventory view that all your trading partners have access to. Now, whether this is a projected inventory view that's going to say, hey, we got a problem in 6 months in our SNOP plan. Let's work together to resolve this. Or we got a problem this afternoon. A promotion's going better than we thought. And we've got a projected inventory view, and I either need to shift mix depending on where I have it deployed in different warehouses, as long as I can have that common master data in order to be able to do that at the item level, or I've got other options that I can use to handle. I can use order aggregation with cross stocks and load building and so forth. A lot of different degrees of freedom I have here across my trading partners. Now, the secret sauce that we have patented is the permission framework. So when you're in a network, a large hub will come in as a trading partner, and they'll bring their carriers and suppliers with them. So when you look at somebody like in our food network, we move over 30% of the food in the United States, and we had Kroger in the network. Now, of course, they have suppliers and carriers in the network. So when our next customers come in, like Safeway and Albertsons came in, a lot of their suppliers and their carriers were already in the network. They already opted in. When we bring in the trading partners, both downstream, your customers, as well as upstream, your suppliers and carriers, all they do, they get an email, they click on the link, and they can onboard with their master data. And then you give them permissions as the hub as to how you want them to interact with you on a trade basis. And that's what gives them visibility to these transactions. And so this is, you can just feel the power of this and how these networks really work. Just like the simple Uber example, everybody has visibility to what's going on. You're not stuck on a street corner wondering if your cab's ever going to show up with dispatchers that aren't really optimizing the assets properly across your network. So this is profound. And then you say, well, how does that work with the existing legacy systems? Well, what's nice is we have this tunable system of control. So when you come in and you layer in your network, and as I said, we have full representation across flow. Initially, it'll be read-only through the existing legacy systems that you have systems of record. And then on a tunable basis, we make some of those and we pull them up as read-write so that now not only do we have visibility to flow issues on demand and supply variation, but now we can go in and take action. We can resolve those issues and then put the answers to those resolutions back in the underlying legacy systems. Now, over time, what happens is a lot of our customers say, well, I want the network to be the system of record. The only thing that's really truly static at an enterprise level is the general ledger. Everything else is dynamic. When you think about how you manage planning and scheduling and execution and how you manage orders and flow and disruption in the ecosystem of trading partners, everything really is happening in the network on a dynamic basis. So why not have the network as the system of record? So it operates at those three levels. It can be initially read-only, get that visibility as part of that whole control tower approach, read-write, depending on what legacy systems we want to keep as system of record. And then other systems will then move up and the network will become the system of record. So very, very flexible there. You also get your digital twin as a side benefit in here. So in that SNOP frame, you can be running your digital twin. It's already part of the network anyway. And you can go ahead and run scenarios, look at different results, and then implement those plans as part of that scenario deployment. This just a graphic shows how you can pull system of record to the network. I talked about the community master data. One of the big problems in these ERP deployments is the sharing of items and parts. And then we've got multi-party permissions as part of that framework. So every transaction is multi-party. You're going to have a buying organization, a supplier organization, co-manufacturing. You're going to have co-packers. You're going to have carriers. And you'd like to have multiple parties represented on a transaction. I guarantee you, when you go in to configure an ERP system, you can only put two parties on a transaction. And that's part of the problem. You want, just like I showed you that projected inventory view, you want multiple parties to be able to participate in a transaction so you can collaborate together and solve problems. So this is really key. And that permissions framework I talked about, that patented infrastructure, is really what governs this. Is people that are in a single instance on a network, they don't want their competitors to see anything that they're doing. All of that is segmented and partitioned and separated, so not an issue. We deal with systems for the biggest military organizations in the United States, and all the safety and security related data, believe me, is entrenched in the infrastructure of the software. Real-time supply demand matching on a global basis is key. You don't want it just domestically. Given the way trade executes today, no one is vertically integrated anymore. Your balance sheet extends across your horizontal network, and you need to have visibility, access, and control on a constant real-time supply-demand match across that network. AI is big now for us. So we have Neo as our personification of our AI engine that we've brought in to the network. So he can either work autonomously, solving problems for you in the background with your KPI guardrails, or he can interact with your planners. And you need to. I mean, look at the volumes we're dealing with today. It's beyond human comprehension. So what Neo does is he brings you to a higher point on your solution space. What happens with your old processes is that's the old 65 days of inventory in the bottom left. Sure, you solve the problem, but you're solving it expensively. What you'd like to do is have a Neo AI support, so you make a series of decisions that bring you to a higher point on your solution space, which would be your 25 days and your 99% promotion in stock, not your old 65 days and your 85% promotion in stock. And then you want the AI environment to remember those decisions so you can replay them just like a grandmaster at chess. And of course, they incorporate AI and deep learning, but also you're still your rule-based engines and regression and heuristics and so forth. So your agents operate at different levels within your control tower for optimized execution. So you've got all your flow, your tunable system of control and your state machines. Then you've got disruptions, you've got exceptions, which are your milestones and your alerts. And then you've got guided resolution with your intelligent decision-making, your analytics, and your dashboards, and your workbenches. It's perfect the way it's architected. It's contextual, so things do change in the network. So Neo will make different recommendations, as you can see on the right. So depending on how your network is changing and there's different problems, Neo will switch his recommendations as to what is the best thing to do and what the projected outcome is financially. So what it looks like if you're on the system is you've got a problem summary, You've got a problem list. You can click on the problems and see the detail behind each problem. And then you've got a workbench. You can either solve it autonomously, or you can post it to a workbench, especially in ML where people don't like the black box nature of it. Sometimes you can interact with the workbench and provide smart prescriptions as part of that workbench environment. So really cool, interesting stuff. For any of you that are interested, please follow up with us, because we love walking people through this and showing you the next and the new normal and what's really coming for the next decade. I mean, this truly is disruptive. These network architectures are completely different than what you've been told and what you've been dealing with the old planning systems, the ERP, the transportation planning and execution systems. Okay. And all the big analysts support this as well. I've got a lot written on this as well that you can access through the company website in terms of different resources that dig into these concepts. So thank you for your time and attention. Hopefully you found this insightful. And what's really been happening here, as a mathematician myself, I'm extremely excited about this. This really changes things for all of us. And really think about what it means to be on a network architecture, and not these old hub and spoke that we've been living with. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Great presentation. I'm just wondering if any of us could digest it over that half an hour. We've got time for a couple of quick questions. One of it is it safe to say that the One Network Enterprises solution isn't really targeted at SMEs? It's more for the larger shipper?
No, actually, we've got 90,000 participants on our network. So most of it are SMEs, small, medium businesses. And what happens is when a big company comes into the network as a large hub, they bring in all their carriers and suppliers. So a lot of the suppliers are the small and medium businesses. And initially, it's a many-to-many architecture, so they're actually a small hub. And what happens over time is they'll want to use the network to deliver to more and more other hubs, because they have lots of customers buying the same products. And this way they can consolidate and aggregate demand and optimize loads and orders. And also they can bring their own suppliers in. So what happens with these networks is they're very viral. And they're a big mix of big companies and small companies and everybody executing trade and working together. It's a real nice ecosystem, the way it's architected.
Okay, so where do I start? Do I need a TMS, for example? Because if you're talking about an SME, most SMEs don't operate a TMS, because I see your solution as sitting on top of that.
Yeah, that dual platform that I presented, where it was sitting on top of the legacy systems, we have a full suite of software services, SaaS services. We have everything in the world that you could ever imagine for demand, for inbound supply, for logistics and transportation. So anybody, the big hubs, the small hubs, big business, small business, they can invoke our services in a workflow in our network and be off to the races and running. So yeah, they can access it, and for smaller businesses, it's very affordable. So yeah, they can either interact with the legacy system if it exists, or they can take our Legos, if you will, these SaaS services we have, and just configure them into a workflow and have that full functionality. And so we've got hundreds and hundreds of services that people use and configure in the network for everything: demand, supply, logistics, fulfillment, all that stuff. Like OTIF that Walmart's demanding, we're offering an OTIF service for all the small suppliers. So they can just invoke our OTIF service and now understand how to be compliant with the new 98% OTIF requirement.
Well, fantastic. So I know One Network has got a booth here, an exhibitor booth. So for any of our participants, if you want to find out more, go and visit the One Network booth in the exhibition area. Joe, I've also taken the liberty of putting your LinkedIn profile on the chat. I hope you do not mind, so that if anyone has any questions, they can reach out to you as well.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Yep, I welcome any questions.
All right. Joe, thank you very much. Very insightful. Appreciate the participation and support, and talk soon.
Great. Yeah, it was nice meeting everybody. Have a great conference.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Bye-bye.
Okay.